even right now, because
that's hard for both sides to learn.
Well, and actually, like, somebody had a prophetic word as we were leaving, and they said, the prophetic word is like, Alan and Anne-Marie must go so that we can grow. And it was right, because so much it was like, oh, how are we ever going to manage without you?
Right.
And it's like, it shouldn't be that way. I should work
Right.
myself out of a job.
Right.
That's what I really should do.
People became too reliant on your constant.
Yeah, and it's like, and for us it was like, it was a labor of love. It wasn't like, oh, we have to do this, gosh, we're here again late.
no.
We loved it.
Yeah.
And with law,
We're a
God
couple
wants
church
to
mice,
join
you know?
the
See, and
body.
that's even something I experienced with the kids as a parent. My boys are growing up, and I'm raising boys,
Yeah.
not young girls. I'm raising boys, so I want them to come to a point of self-reliance, decision and fail, learn, better decision next time. But to see your kid fail, when you know it's setting up that way, and to not do anything. I mean, that's happened a couple times with Woody. To see him actually make a fail, and knowing that I could have said something to prevent it, and to not say anything. That's rough, but that's part of the growth process. It's what we do. It's what God does with us, you know? And sometimes we have to fail so that we can grow past and through it.
Everybody fails.
That's why there's grace. Because we all make mistakes. We all fall on our face sometime, or fall on our sword because we made some bad choices, or we misinterpreted what we thought we saw going on. You know, sometimes we think we know what God's doing, and we run with it, and He's like, wait, what's it? Don't be bad.
Yeah.
So with Donovan, it's like, I mean, it was a great, as he's wrestling through this, what is the purpose of the priesthood? Why can't these people, you know, he's looking at 1 Corinthians, especially like chapters 12, 13, 14, and here's all these gifts that God is going to give to His people by the Holy Spirit, you know, and
To enable them.
So enable them to be the body of Christ, to help one another, to build each other up. Why do you need to have a hired gun come in from the Vatican? Why do you need to have somebody from America come in? Now, sometimes it's appropriate, but he's saying, why can't we find this in the midst of them? And I'm a firm believer that I would rather see a pastor grown up out of the body of a church than brought in as a hired hand. You know, because there's investment. There's people know the person, and then, well, sometimes it can be a case of the, isn't that Joseph's kid? You can run into that. You know, you can run into that. But there's other times like you really understand the people when you have a heart for them. So anyway, so he's wrestling this out about how do they, because they already understand community. Whereas in America, I don't think we understand community anymore. Especially since we've kind of like, now we have husbands and wives working and kids going to school, and we're all living our separate lives apart from each other. And we might come together for a meal if we're lucky, and rush off and do sports, and rush off and do something else. And there's really not a keen sense that we're all about doing things, but we're not really about being a community or being a family sometimes. We don't know how to do it the way it used to be when there was like a lot more time in the family. Or we had 3 generations living together. You know, we had the combined wisdom of the grandparents and the parents. Now, sometimes that can be hard to live underneath.
That's actually coming back.
Well,
Houses being built specifically to have that.
well, part is our economy can't support.
Yeah, I know.
You can't be all separate families
It
anymore.
might not be a bad thing in some regard.
Yeah, provided there's godly things going on there, and there's good things going on in that household. You know. So, anyway, so Donovan's making this choice about how to do this and how to release it to them.
That's right.
Now, my thought about what Donovan had to say is like, you know, it would be a bad idea for him just to stop back in once every 6 months. How you doing? Get some feedback. And because there's times when sometimes you get yourself in a corner and you're like, what do I do about this? And it'd be nice to have somebody who has wisdom come in there and speak to that situation. And he sent his own disciples. He had Timothy, he had Silas, he had, I can't remember all the names, all the other disciples he had, that he would send out into other communities to bring instruction or bring correction or whatever they needed in that community. Because they were staying in communication, you know. Because when we look at the 2 letters, 1 and 2 Corinthians, those are responses to letters that he had received about what's going on there.
Mhm.
And so there's this communication. So I think that's important as missionaries, you know, to have an investment somehow. So like, I kind of like it that I can, with Facebook, I can see what's going on with my friends in different places, what's going on over there. Now, I didn't plant any, well, personally planted any churches. You know, I participated in some stuff being planted in. It's just good to be in contact with those people. And I think maybe that, you know, he didn't know how to do that because he didn't have a team of disciples that he was bringing with him, that he could send off to do this and do that. I don't know.
It's a definite handicap.
So I wonder if that's something he thought about. And the book really doesn't answer for us, that I can see. But he just felt like he had to leave and move on and trust that God's going to work in his community. But he did spend a whole year there, but he spent longer in Ephesus, in Antioch. He spent, well, was it Antioch? He spent 3 years there?
Yeah.
So it was like,
Yeah.
hey, you know, we all have our arguments, trying to figure out, because he had a mission.
He had a plan.
Donovan had a
He'd
plan.
already made a plan in previous chapter.
Yeah.
Of how he would go to each territory, as it were.
Yeah, and you know, well, I guess like he meets with 6 different villages
6 different, yeah.
for a year,
Mhm.
and then
moved to home.
moved to another 6 villages. And I think it's quite remarkable.
Pretty bold.
Very bold. He said, well, we were just trying to do Pastor Paul, or the Apostle Paul tried and see how it worked. I think it's great. So, I'm going to skip KP Yohanan for the minute, and we're going to talk about this week's topic, which is dealing with opposition or even attacks to missions. And I've got one big, long list.
Oh, you do.
She's just looking at my questions going, oh my gosh, what is he talking about? Okay. Now, I see the word of missions being attacked in various ways. Some of it's ideological, some of it's spiritual, some of it's physical. And I'm sure that we could add other things to the list. And so I know my attempt at trying to categorize this is kind of like, you know, how zoologists like to categorize animals into different phyla and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These are just man-created categories. And these are my thoughts. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to talk about the sources of the attacks, the kinds of attacks or obstacles that we can run into, and the targets of the attacks. So I'm going to start off with what kinds of attacks. Now, the one that, you know, a lot of modern people don't want to talk about is, I talked about sources of the attacks or obstacles as the kingdom of darkness. Maybe I should use abbreviations.
Can I ask you a question just to back it up?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got this here on what I would consider basically our student guide or homework stuff. But are these questions that you actually want us to reply back to in the student guide, or are these just classroom discussions that we're going through?
Actually, those are for you to reply on.
Okay. All right then.
Okay? And if it's too much, remember, all you need is a 51 to pass. Well, actually, next week, if I could, I haven't seen you guys' homework, and so she's been sending her homework to me as an email, so I can just like check it off, so that you did your homework.
But you know what? We cannot open the attachment, so we still doing it.
And there?
And that,
Oh, yeah.
We
They
do
can't
all
open your
the-
Google attachments.
Well,
Remember I had you send them to me as regular email attachments?
Yeah.
Are you sending them to them?
Yeah, that's what we're doing, sending as email attachments now.
we cannot open.
Okay, when those, do you have Microsoft Word? Microsoft Word program?
Office work, yeah.
Yeah, Office.
Office.
Microsoft, well, it depends. They should be able to, you can't open any of them.
Check again, because I know the first 2 times I couldn't, and I had to ask him.
We tried, remember? I tried, he tried.
No.
I know the links I was sending you.
Technology.
You kind of had it. I think you had. For some of them, I said that anybody with the link should be able to open it.
Yeah. With the Google thing, that was having difficulty sometimes.
Okay.
But, I mean, I can still open it, I just couldn't manipulate it.
That's it.
But you can't download it, can you?
No, we can
It
we
would-
can download it.
The Google Doc one, I don't remember.
I tried to download it, and you know what happened? come a lot of letters, numbers, like cool. But a lot
Have
of
an older version of Word.
Maybe. Oh, I'm trying to use like one that works for 90, like Word 97.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So I don't know what we can do about that. But I mean, the fact that I want to see that you've made some attempt to engage the questions and try to talk to them about them. You don't have to have, I'm not looking for elaborate.
Yeah, some of mine's not elaborate. Some of mine's,
no, we do all the work. We do it every week.
Okay. But even into this, I kind of see like 3 subgroups. You have like out and out demonic attack, or demonic obstacles set up by demonic. We have what's called schema or schemes of the devil. And then we have what's called powers and authorities. Now, we see in the New Testament, we see Jesus casting out demons. And so demons are like, some people refer to them as fallen angels. Anyway, they're agents of our enemy, the devil, of Satan. And their job can be all kinds of things. I mean, we don't have a time for a whole class of demonology. And I really don't think we need to actually spend too much time in that, because people who spend too much time and worry about all this stuff and try to categorize and stuff, really get sucked into it. And pretty soon then the devil just uses it, he distracts them by it. But I'm just saying that these are things that can happen. Now, a lot of people in the modern world say, oh, there's no such things. And they don't want to talk about them. In fact, in K.P. Yohanan's book, that's part of his issue, saying, we're not talking about these things. We're not talking about the supernatural. And just flat out, I mean, when I talk about Christianity, I think it is a supernatural faith. It's not something that just a philosophy that I grasp onto with a set of rules. Says, okay, I like these moral rules, and I'll go to church, and that makes me a Christian. No, those are kind of the outgrowths of the supernatural change that God's made in me. And on top of that, I personally been involved in demonic oppression.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure what you think about demonic oppression or demonic possession of Christians, what your theology allows for, but the only demons I've cast out of people were Christians.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so now then the schemes of the devil it's kind of like, they're like little traps. He doesn't have to be there. He just sets up stuff, and then we kind of stumble into it. Maybe it's people that he's got that are working for him, and now they're there. They're going to try to harass us or cause us trouble. Maybe they're temptation emails that you're going to get. Who knows? I don't know. But the schemes of the devil are just ways. It's not that we're not actually encountering the devil, but he's just put things in place that make things trouble.
Circumstances are set up.
Creates trouble for us.
Easy to get trouble.
Yeah, easy for us to get into trouble. And the third thing is like this idea, when I talk about in the 6th chapter of Ephesians, it talks about, we do not struggle against flesh and blood, but we struggle against heavenly rulers, and there's powers and authorities in the heavenlies. And there's a term that's used, I'm not sure if you heard it, called territorial spirits. Some people don't believe in it. And
Daniel. Daniel would speak to that.
Yeah. You ever talk about the spirit of Babylon that he was wrestling with? No, I can't remember now.
The king over Persia.
Called the king of Persia.
Right.
But it's actually a spirit that was over Persia that he was wrestling with.
Right. Prince of Persia. That's
Prince of
what
Persia.
it's
There we
called.
go. Thank you. So we got this idea that we're in. There's people. There's entities. There's entities that are not happy that we're there, and we may encounter them. And so, and I'm going to come back to this later on when we talk about how do we address this, but mostly a lot of this is being prayerfully prepared, having your eyes open, trusting the Holy Spirit to show you or reveal you what's going on, and just knowing that this is a possibility that you may encounter these kinds of things. Jesus was in a synagogue. Here we have a guy who's possessed of the devil and screaming at Jesus in a synagogue. Paul's out in the street. Some woman's got the spirit of prophecy, or not prophecy, of foretelling, basically. And she's saying, "This is the man of God."
Right.
So there's all these. There's things that are going on around us that are in the supernatural. Now in America, I think some of it's more in the down low, but it's there. It's there. And when I was back in my days when I was in the Navy, and I was a dungeon master. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I used to create all these dungeons. And for me, it was just a game. But the people that it brought to my house, it was real to them, and some of them were they had been witches, or been involved in witchcraft and that kind of stuff. And so with them came other things. And we had some demonic encounters in my house, and it's like, it was kind of scary, kind of weird. Maybe I shouldn't do that. In fact, when I became a Christian, I actually burned all that stuff and got rid of it. Just like we read in the first couple of chapters of Acts, where they went into Samaria, and those people, burned up all these spell books that they had.
Oh, right.
Yeah. In fact, I read that, and it's like, maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
So this is one of our things we're going to have to deal with. Just one of the things. Okay. The other, pretty straightforward. The world. There are two. Now, there's a couple, actually kind of look at that two different ways, right? You talk about the world system, which has its links back to this, or you just talk about around us, all the stuff that's going on around us in the world. There's disease, there's greed, there's famine, there's accidents, there's random acts of violence, there's random acts of kindness. All these things that it's just part of the human condition, And sometimes we just have to say, you know what? Stuff happens in our lives, Lord, and it's not so matter of like, why did this happen to God? Because sometimes, we get trapped in this mindset that everything that happens to us happens for a reason. I think there's some things that God just, He's not worried about. And it happens to us, but more important, what do we do with it when it does happen to us? Whether it's caused by a person who's angry at us, doesn't like us, whether it's caused by somebody who's demonically possessed or oppressed, or some other thing. Just different things can happen out of the world. What do I have on my list? I have quite a list. It could be from political sources, either national or local or international. Like right now, it's like there's actually they're passing laws in the United Nations that impact us.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And actually, I think my understanding is, somebody had explained to me one time, is that treaties are actually higher than constitutional than our national laws.
Right.
And so they can actually violate the Constitution or violate local laws.
Right, because the Treaty of Nations versus an individual's nation. It falls under in authority.
So it's kind of like back to the old argument of states' rights versus
government.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it could be from other religions, other cultures or races, other philosophies or ideologies, or even thieves or criminal elements. These are all part of the world, that surround us. Whether you're talking about the world system, which is really what? The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. And that's the world system. But then we talk about the world in general, around us. There's so many different things that are going on that could impact us. That can impact our mission. That could obstruct us. That could prevent us. You could be, some friends of mine, I don't know what it is, why God allowed it to happen, or was it just a random chance, but had some friends. Ukraine's not always a good place. There's a lot of criminal elements, and there's some parts of town that Ukrainians don't like to go to. And I know one guy who was attacked twice. Physically attacked. He's walking down the street, and two guys tried to rob him, and he ended up, he choked one of them, got out, and beat the other one with it. He's a pretty big guy. And the other time he was walking down the street, and some guy came up behind him and clocked him in the back of the head, and they took his backpack because he had his computer in it. And now, both times he came around and actually started to chase the guy down, and the guy dropped the backpack. But still. And then I know a friend of ours, she was on the metro, and she got caught between two pickpockets. And a lot of times they work in teams. And so like one of them's like bumping her and moving and causing her to be off balance, and the other guy's got his hand in his purse. She had money that she was taking to somebody else. It wasn't her money. It was money and she had her bills, money to pay bills. All this stuff was in her purse. They got it all. They even got her change. She didn't get away with anything. So why did God allow that to happen? I don't know. Or was it just random acts of violence that are part of the world? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that thing I put up on my Facebook, coincidences versus God winks. And this guy has actually coined this word now.
God winks.
As God winks, and the God winks are the things that cannot be explained by anything other than the fact that there is a supernatural God who's interested in you and cares for you and has created that circumstance for you. That he calls that a God wink. It's not just a coincidence. But yeah, I wrote down on my notes here that some things are just circumstantial, some things are environmental, some things are positional. Like you said, igniting thinking, some things are ideological.
Yeah, there's all these possibilities. And then third, those close to us can be obstructional. You know, one of the questions I asked you, your thing is like, has anybody who's a family member or friend ever said to you, but there's people here in America that need help. Why are you going to the Philippines? Or why are you going to Guatemala?
Yeah.
And it's a form of obstruction, that or opposition, that you're, because somebody's got this idea that somehow America is more deserving. And these other people, don't we help them enough? You need to. Charity starts at home.
Help your own kind first.
Yeah, look out for your own first. You know, blood's thicker than water. You know, all these different phrases, but for us, the Spirit's thicker than water.
You know, when I faced that kind of problem, it happened to me once. This lady, she said, you know, in here there's so many children, too many people starving. Why do you have to bother yourself to go far away from your country? You can do it in here. And I told her, you know, in other countries they really starve because there's no way to it, there's nothing. In here, it's because the welfare system provides the money. You know, the unemployment provides the money for who's not working. Jobs, if you really need a job, if I have no job, I go to McDonald's, Burger King, and clean table, whatever. It's a job in here. It's a job. Those countries, you know. Remember when we went to the trash, the children eating trash in Philippines? Those people have nothing. Nowhere to work, nothing.
It's a condition of the heart.
Yeah.
You know, there's either a arrogance or
So you know what happened? They come to the point and they understand and they say, oh well, yeah, that's true. In here we have. In here we have. They have. We provide for them.
Now, I have a different way of dealing with people like that. It's like, wow, God must really have on your heart to take care of these people here. What are you doing about it? Because it's like, if you're going to complain about me going to some other place to help somebody else that I'm not helping here, what are you doing? If you're doing something, well, praise God, you know. Or maybe that's God's way of saying to you that you need to do something there. What? Good luck with that, huh?
You're stoked in the fire, aren't you, baby?
I know. Okay, so that could be our family members, could be even members of your church. Sometimes people in the church are like, where are you going? You know, there are some people that are very, very strong denominational lines. Well, what are you doing talking to Baptists? You're Pentecostal.
Right.
You know, well, you're preaching on the Holy Spirit, right? It's like, well, when they're written for it, I will, you know. So everybody's got these ideas about what you should do when they're not really even Spirit-led, they're just their opinions. There's a lot of opinions out there. Everybody's got more than one. Okay. Now, kinds of obstacles. Okay, that's the next part. Okay, so I got, how many here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which, actually, like I said, some of this is going to be overlapping. So we talk about kinds of obstacles. So we have what's the source of them? Where are they coming from? They're coming from the world. They're coming from the powers of darkness. They're coming from people that we know, or maybe even people who love us. But they're preventing us from carrying out what God's called us to do. And those are obstacles. So then the kinds of obstacles. And then I think, well, a kingdom of darkness, spiritual. We can have spiritual attacks, spiritual obstacles that are put in the way. And we kind of talked about it already. It's like, this could include things like curses. It can include things like temptation that are being sent by demonic emissaries. I'm not sure if you guys know Graham Cook or not. He's a Pentecostal preacher, and I post some of his stuff on the internet sometimes. But he talks about this incident he had where somebody called him up on the phone. And this guy was from, this is in England, I guess, when it happened. And the guy he's a Satanist. And he starts spewing all these curses at Graham Cook. Now, Graham Cook, you got to understand, he laughed about it. Said, so you're a Satanist then? Eh? Well, you're not very good one, are you? and basically
mocked him.
And then in the end, he really had a message from God. He says, I have a message from God for you. He says, I'm coming to get you. And so instead of walking in fear because some Satanist called him on the phone, he turned it around and put the fear back in the Satanist. And actually something later on, that same guy actually did have an encounter with Jesus. But anyway, there are spiritual forces out there that are working at us, and sometimes it will be a spiritual attack. It could affect us in our faith. It could be something that distracts from our faith. We don't have to, for some reason, it's like somebody's draining all the power out of your faith.
Right.
And that could be a demonic attack.
Right.
And we can't discount these kinds of things, because if we minimize them or discount them and don't take authority over them, then they end up having power. It's like by denying some things, you actually enable them. So when it comes to spiritual stuff, you need to think about, okay, whose authority do I walk in? And if it looks like there's something, pray my two most important prayers, right? One, God, what's going on here? And trust the Holy Spirit's going to try to speak to you about that. And two, God, what would you have me do about it? And sometimes it's like, I'm no doubt. Well, it's a spiritual attack. Take authority over it. You've been given, Jesus says, I've given you all authority in heaven and earth is given to him. And in Luke 10:19, he says, I've given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, which is code words for demons, and over all the power of the enemy.
My case, real scorpions.
But he's given you power over those things, to trample on them. He's saying, I've given you power over all this stuff. Don't be afraid, because I'm with you. Now, it still means you have to address them. You don't ignore them. And sometimes that's been my mistake. Well, I'm working for God. I don't have to worry about these things. And then they come in the back door. So, what happened? Sometimes it could be sicknesses can be caused. Like somebody put a curse on somebody, and somebody falls ill under a curse, and so somebody needs to come up and speak in God's authority, see what's going on, and have spiritual discernment of what's going on in that situation to cast it out. Okay. Let me cover all my possibilities here. Demonic oppression, lies of the devil, lying spirits. One of my demonic encounters was actually it was like a lying spirit, but it inhabited this person in the form of a lie. It was like a living lie that could speak to you. So maybe it was a lying spirit, I don't know. But okay, this person had concocted a lie so that people would feel sorry for them. And they said it so long, it had become kind of real. And then the person became really fearful that the truth was going to come out. And so we actually, my wife and I ended up having like a casting out demons kind of thing. It took more than one attempt with this person to address and the lie was actually speaking to me, And finally we just kept speaking God's truth over it. And when this person was affected by it, like I remember one time I tried to tell them the truth about what God loves them, God cares for them. They put their hands over their ears and like trying to hide from it. So I don't have a hard and fast rule for my demonology. I just kind of like, okay, God, whatever's here, you show me what to do. Because that's all I have to do is like, you know what? If there's a demon, to me, this may sound weird to you, but to me that reinforces the fact that God exists. If these things exist, oh my gosh, that means that Jesus, that reinforces the truth that Jesus died for my sins. That reinforces the fact that there's a God in heaven who's over me, and which reinforces the fact that He's given me authority to speak to that thing, and I can do so without fear.
Right.
And for me, it's like, this part of it, it's like, it doesn't happen very often, but I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, though, sometimes I minimize it more than I should. Okay, so if it schemes of faith attacks, it can create doubt or fear in you, so that you're worried about what's going to happen. What's going to happen if this doesn't happen? What happens in one? You know, this was one for me. It's like that's one that the devil will get me. Is like fear of financial problems. What if I don't have enough money to pay for the rent? What if I don't have enough money to buy food? What if I don't have enough money to get us? We didn't go back to America for 3 years. Actually, 2 years was the first time, and then another 3 years after that before we went back.
And God provides.
He provided. Now, other missionaries who went back twice a year, you know. So I had to deal with my own, what do you call it, jealousy over that, envy and jealousy over that. You know, I had to give that away. He said, "Okay, God, I can't go any deeper in debt than I am, so I have to trust you." You know. Okay. Spiritual opposition and for like territorial spirits we talked about before. Okay. Another one's really just straightforward. I kind of like lump them all together. And these aren't necessarily contrived directly against you. Personal attacks, physical problems, or material problems. Sometimes it's just like you picked up a bug and you're sick.
Right.
You know,
right.
you drank some unclean water you shouldn't drink. The first time we went to Ukraine, a lot of us got deathly sick because we weren't used to the biological the bioflora that was living there, and it made us weak. You know, had to be really close to the toilet for like a week, and it's like, not a week, 3 days. But anyway, it really weakened us. Now, so is that a spiritual attack? I don't know. Or is it just the fact that we live in a fallen world and there's stuff that'll mess with us? Now, some people say, oh, well, we don't read anywhere that the disciples were sick. So obviously, if we're a true disciple of Christ, we'll never get sick. Absence theology. I don't really believe in that. I think if you get sick, pray. And if prayer doesn't work, take medicine. But you have to be prepared. Sometimes, like, you're going somewhere, it's like, well, I'm going to Africa. Maybe I should get some anti-malaria medicine, you know?
Right.
Pray about it, you know? But, you know what? When I went to Ukraine, I took hepatitis A, hepatitis B, inoculations. I took typhoid, yellow fever, one more, I can't think what it is. Dysentery, I think. You know, I took all the medication for that just to be on the safe side.
Right. That's what I did the first time I went to the Philippines, and the second time when I took leave. Both times we took all our shots. We've never been out of the United States, and we've never, it's like
your immune system is just not used to.
This is a big deal, and it's just, what does it cost as a safeguard?
Now, some people, some people might say, oh, but you don't have enough faith.
Exactly, and that was one of the things that came up.
I'm cautious about, I don't want to say that to anybody.
I know, but that was one of the things that came up as a rhetorical comment back to me, and I just thought, you know what? I have faith, but you know what? I'm still going to travel with caution.
And why does the Apostle Paul tell Timothy to take wine for a stomach?
Right? I mean, it's like. So
sometimes there are natural cures that we can take that are there and available for us. So, okay. So under the area of all this, we have disease. Could be you're going to be exposed to food you're just not used to. You know, so there's dietary issues. Whenever in Ukraine, it's like what's kind of interesting in Ukraine is we didn't have there weren't preservatives in a lot of stuff.
Right.
And so it's like, wow, actually, that was a benefit. The food tasted better. Everything was just so much better tasting. I think American produce is like tasteless. Ukrainian has a real distinct, strong, good taste. Yeah.
Probably because it's fresh.
It is. It's fresh. It's not raised with all these preservatives and sprays. Okay. Parasites. You know. Some places it can be really, really bad.
Yep.
You have to be, and Philippines is one place. Africa is another place.
Yeah.
The water in St. Petersburg, and the water in Donetsk, which is in the eastern part of Ukraine, they're known to have parasites. It's documented. And so you want to drink bottled water, or you want to take something that can kill the parasites. Or
that's like it was with us in the Philippines, because even, matter of fact, when Bayan, he's got that real hearty laugh. He's actually had picked up a parasite from ice himself. He lived there. He's native. And he's been suffering with it. I think now he might have gotten better, but I hadn't communicated specifically. But he actually came to near-death experience because it's an amoeba. But it'll die with proper medication because you can kill it. But without the proper medication, it subsists in your body and it'll plant in your brain.
Yeah.
And he was having some serious struggles. He was very, very sick. And that's the kind of thing that when we go to the Philippines, it's like, we can get cans and bottles of soda, but then we enjoy it with ice? Maybe not.
No.
Maybe not. So that's just kind of like the wisdom. It was like, well, we were on Sundays, we all split out to different churches to minister, so the team broke off into multiple areas. And then the host family, whoever church you go to, will feed you lunch, Woody got terribly sick one time, really brutal. I wanted so badly to enjoy the dried fish because I love dried fish, and they were like an anchovy, and I didn't like it.
They probably like Ukraine. They sell them on the streets.
And the pastor was like, no. I know you say you like it, but we are not going to give that to you. Whole plate of it right in front of me. Like, no, you better not, because it's air dried, and then the flies and the parasites and the larvae, and they're like, we need you to stay healthy, so please don't. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. What are you going to do?
Some of it could be like weariness. You get too tired. You overdo it. You push yourself too hard. You don't take a Sabbath. And so you get physically run down because especially when you go on those mission trips, it's just like for 3 weeks, it's go.
See, and that's where sometimes I have to, is it truly a kind of opposition attack versus a common sense you're using for judgment? And that's the balance that you have to do.
Well, it's like, I kind of love all these things. Like, opposition gives you the idea that, okay, we have this enemy that's coming against us.
Right, you're always looking for a devil on every corner.
Well, some is just random stuff. It's just the way the world, back to the world. A lot of that is the source of the world. We live in a fallen world. Because there's a fallen world, there's all kinds of disease and things out there that can make us sick. Sometimes we use poor judgment. It's our own. Maybe that's another category I should have had about sources. Our own poor judgment.
That'll go in the personal right there.
Yeah. Well, I talk about sources because right now we're talking about types of attack, types of opposition, types of distractions. Maybe the word opposition and attack is too strong because some of this, like these things, are it's just natural stuff. But you still have to think about it. I'm going to another country. If you go to Ukraine with me, okay, 10 time zones away. Philippines, how many time zones is that?
I don't know.
7?
No.
Time zones. How many hours away? Time zones.
16.
Well, we're 15 hours apart.
Yeah, but
Time zones, I think, is actually 4. I think it's 4 times.
Actually, if you're 15, then it's 9.
14.
It's 12 plus 3.
Or 15.
12 hours plus 3. It's 15 hours.
Well, take the shortest direction, then you know what it is, and it's like 8 hours or 9 hours difference.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ukraine's 10 hours ahead of us. Okay, the Philippines, you're on the same side of.
No.
The opposite is that side of the international date line, but they're closer to Ukraine than they are to America.
When we traveled Philippines, we lost 1 day, remember?
Right.
We leave
Yeah.
Tuesday and we
We're
arrive Thursday.
15 hours.
Yeah, because you cross the international date line.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. But my point is still that jet lag can be an issue.
Sure.
And you have to think about how you're going to deal with it. Now, I got my own ways of dealing with jet lag. Sometimes just keep busy. And then try to be in the light during the daytime helps a lot to stay hydrated. I also found like if I take stimulants, like coffee or Coca-Cola or Jolt or one of those things, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it kind of like resets your body's biorhythm to get you back on track. And usually for me, most times it takes me about 3 days at the worst to get to get back on the whatever time zone I'm in. Okay. Mental confusion, which could be from dehydration. It could be from you're in a different culture, and you just don't understand how does this work. I don't know up from down. It's like especially like somebody like maybe I don't know if your kids have spent their whole life in Las Vegas, and you take them to some foreign culture, and they've never been before. It can be exciting, and it can be very confusing.
Depending on that kid's personality.
Yeah, it depends on the personality of the person. Okay. I'm not sure I put this in the right place. Well, as far as like personal attack, there could be things could lie about you and your ministry, or your ministry. Like we were Americans, and there's a few times when like we overheard people say, "Oh, those are Americans," and they'd walk away from us. They didn't want to have to deal with us. And then there's other people going, "Oh, they're Americans, triple the price."
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't realize you can hear them and understand them. If you've been there long enough, you can. And for me, it was a long process, but yeah, you can understand some of that stuff. And they just see it's like, so you see the Americans like little dogs trying to their eyes.
Yep.
Yeah, I paid $30 for a belt in Ukraine. It's like because I was desperate for a belt, and it's like I could buy the same belt.
A piece of
For
wood
$12
to make it work.
Yeah, I could have got a belt. But for $12 at Walmart, I could have got the same belt.
But can they see the difference? If you don't talk, can they see the difference between you and American and the Ukrainian?
Part is how I dress, part is how I walk, and when I speak Russian, they can hear my accent.
No, when you speak, yeah, they
Some people on the bus, like, I mean, like people just start talking in Russian like they think I'm another Ukrainian.
Because a lot of Russians, they have dark hair.
Oh, they have sandy colored hair, most of them actually. Yeah, sandy colored hair.
Yeah, that's what I said. Physically, I don't think it's big.
I look more Anglo. Like my wife, like when I can't remember the name of the British aircraft carrier pulled into Newport, Florida, which is where I was stationed. And I think I was gone at the time. And anyway, there was all these British sailors, and my wife says it was like seeing my husband all over the place. She said there was a lot of physical characteristics that we shared. And I couldn't tell you what they are, but she goes, "Oh my gosh, he's very British." She could see it. So. What can I say? Anyway, you could suffer physical attacks. Something that could be beatings. People throw stuff at you. You could be assaulted, like those people I talked about. These are the kinds of attacks you might suffer. Okay, then I actually put those all together. Material, political. And I experienced some of that. I mean, depending, especially if you went into a country where there's anti-American sentiment, or it's an Islamic country, there could be laws that are set up to prevent you from doing what you come there to do.
Right.
It may be, like, even in Israel, do you know it's illegal to proselytize people in Israel?
Yeah.
Not that.
Oh, it depends on what quarter you're in.
Yeah.
Because there's the different quarters.
Are you talking about in Jerusalem?
In Jerusalem.
Jerusalem's a little different. I'm talking about in a country, like my understanding is that you're not really supposed to proselytize anybody.
Anywhere? Oh.
So I was told. Okay, but in Ukraine, if you're coming into the country, in every community, they have a representative of the government who oversees religion. And so if you're in a town, he could, and I had it happen to me, the guy says, well, where's your letter of invitation?
The constable.
It's not the constable, he's a minister, is the word they use. He's the minister of religion. And his job is to monitor churches, and I'm not sure how exactly it works, but if I come to speak at a church, I have to be officially invited, otherwise I don't have a right, in their government's eyes, I don't have a right to speak there. Now these are my personal friends, people I've known for 8 years now, and yet, they can say, no, you can't talk there because you don't have a letter. So these are things you may have to either, if you try to avoid them, then they get you, or you may have to jump through some hoops to make it happen. Like when we tried, before we left, we were trying to comply with the new law. And the new law says that, okay, if you're doing religious work, you can't be here underneath this kind of visa anymore. In fact, this visa is going away. There's going to be two kinds of visas, And so we're trying to get under this visa that allowed us to get like a green card. Yeah, talk about jumping through hoops.
Milking your wallet, you said.
Yeah. They'll be paying for that for a while. But anyway, the politics of the country you're in. Imagine if you're going to Egypt, or if you're going to Syria, or you're going to Kazakhstan, or Uzbekistan, or Tajikistan, where Christianity is illegal. Yeah, Kazakhstan's not illegal, but some of these other countries, yeah, especially Muslim countries, proselytizing they'll jail you in a heartbeat.
Muslim countries.
Yeah.
In Bangladesh, if you say I'm Christian, or somebody say he's a Christian, they get you. Just simple.
Now, Bangladesh is like Buddhist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh. That doesn't sound very. It's kind of interesting how people use religion to twist it, because actually Buddha's kind of like pacifist, if I remember right. He's kind of like, his teachings are like, somebody assaults you, you smile at him. He kind of teaches turn the other cheek in his own way, but it's like.
Well, his yin and yang aren't working for me.
Yin and yang, that's more Korean.
That's more Korean, yeah. But
that's the idea that there's like good and evil in the world, and wherever there's an excess of good, then evil will retreat. And wherever there's a minimum of good, then evil will advance. Which is philosophically, it's not such a bad. I mean, we can see it almost at work in where we're at. When there's a Christian presence, where there's going to be pushing back the darkness.
Where sin abounds, grace all the more.
Yep. Okay. It could be banning evangelism, proselytizing, restrictions on religious materials. In Ukraine, I can't ship Bibles to individuals. I can only ship, otherwise they have to pay like some huge, like $50 a Bible for it to come into the country. But if I mail it to a church, it's okay. So you have to know these things about when you're sending religious materials overseas. Restrictions on bringing money in the country. Ukraine, you have to declare how much money you're bringing into the country. So if you're bringing more than $3,000, you have to declare that. So, and they're going to want to know when you leave the country.
Philippines, the same way. The customs papers. Like when I sent those books to the school in Luzon, I sent them to, which was basically a roundabout compliance, because I knew the pastors, the lady pastor, Cal Forrest, she said, send it to me at my work address, because she worked for the government. And so she said, send it to me at my work address and I will transport it. And so that's what we did. That's what I did. I sent it to her at her work address. And then everybody was looking for it because they knew that she was expecting some box from the United States. Wah! And when it came, she discreetly said, yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
Took a while to get there, but she got it.
It's like, I feel like sometimes with regard to keeping the laws of the land, I think sometimes we're dancing on the knife edge. Because on one side we have both Peter and Paul telling us, and James too, I think, isn't it? Or not?
To what?
To obey the laws of the land.
Right.
We have the apostles telling us, obey the laws of the land. And if we don't, there could be consequences for it. But at the same time, if they say, don't preach the gospel, are you required to adhere to that?
Well, if his law is greater,
Yeah. And so sometimes it's like, we have the word that says, obey the laws of the land. Okay. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Render unto God what is God's. Jews are great for finding loopholes. And when you look at some of Paul's scriptures that he's pulling out, sometimes he's using scriptures that aren't necessarily contextually appropriate.
Right.
But he's using it to drive home his point. He's using the authority of scripture. So political is one of the means, I should types of obstacles that we can face. Well, another thing in Ukraine, all churches have to be registered.
Yeah, you can.
And in some countries, they want to know everybody who attends the church. The government wants to have a list of the attendees.
Well, didn't you say that's kind of a Soviet throwback too?
It is. It is a Soviet throwback.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes in Ukraine they use it because once communism left the country, there's a lot of influence of it left behind. The Orthodox kind of like the idea of the Protestant churches being controlled, because they see the Protestants as opposition. Then we could have ideological obstacles caused by atheism. Like, we live in a country now where it's more popular to be an atheist sometimes than it is to be a believer, at least in certain realms, especially in the academic world. And so we want to if we try to talk about our faith, the opposition we may be by this ideology like atheism or religious pluralism, universalism, communism. All those are potential, obstacles that we may be facing. China, right? I don't know what they would be called. They're still a communist country.
Yeah.
Vietnam, communist country. North Korea, communist country. Although probably getting into North Korea.
Myanmar.
Yeah, Myanmar. All these countries where the ideology is definitely antithetical to Christianity and serves as an obstacle. If you're trying to work to be a missionary to students, there's people in the school system that are very anti-Christian. In fact, I watched a video about a number of people they were basically fired from their jobs in some of these high-level universities because they used the word intelligent design.
Oh, right here it is.
Okay. Random acts and accidents, we talked about that. Okay, and then the last section would be targets. Who's the target? Who? If we're talking about an actual attack, I kind of see it as like three main areas. One being, kind of us. It's against the missionary, their families, or the ministry. There may be lies about you and your family, attacks on your reputation, things like that. But these are like things that you're targeted for an attack. The other could be something that's targeting our resources. All of a sudden somebody decides, oh, I don't want to support you anymore. And you don't know if is that demonic? Maybe they lost their job. I lost two of my biggest supporters due to death.
Oh.
They passed, because one was in his 90s and the other was in his 80s. It's going to happen. So you have to be thinking about these things. These are things that could happen to you. Where do we go here? Family and friends. Could be like, because like sometimes because you're serving over there, it's like the enemy targets your family.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about your immediate family. It could be your parents, or your brother, or your sister. It causes problems that somehow cause ripples that reach you. Maybe you have to go back. And sometimes maybe it's just like your mom's sick. She's in the hospital. I was over there. My mom had a heart attack. They went in there and they were doing some bypasses, and they had to open like 3 or 4 of her arteries that go into her heart, and one of them they couldn't even open. But luckily, her body actually grown another artery around.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, apparently that's something our body, when we get older in life, our body has this ability to actually generate bypasses.
To replicate its own bypass.
Yeah.
You never heard of that.
Yeah, so as long as you don't suffer a major, heart attack, there's a possibility you could actually survive that kind of stuff. Interesting how God makes us. So then our supporters, our resources, family and friends, and just maybe those being evangelized.
Yeah, that was an interesting point.
We're coming over there. We got the good news, and the enemy doesn't want it. So, he could try to confuse people. He could try to twist our words. He could make them sick, or sometimes it's just like it's cultural blocks that we don't know how. Oh, they're an American, so we can't trust anything they say. Or it could be just the opposite too. It could be an American. Oh, it's like the prophet from another town all of a sudden has more validity than the people that live there. it could work either way. I had it work either way. I had one person, oh, I can't believe they're Americans, and didn't believe us, and then other people were just so excited to see Americans in their village and wanted to hear what we had to say. And so it could work either way. But sometimes when you're trying to speak to people, there are, just at the time you're trying to talk to somebody, all of a sudden something interrupts. Or the list goes on. So it's just the idea that you need to be ready. So it comes back. So how do we deal with these things? And I think, what's the number one answer? Prayer. Yeah, prayer. You'd be praying to others. God, what's going on, Lord? And thinking about it. As you're thinking about all these potential obstacles, you can just now, begin to pray. Lord, protect our health. Lord, guard their minds. Lord, prepare them that they might be open to receive the message. It could be, Lord, help me to have wisdom in how to do this. Lord, you're the one who meets all our needs. Lord, we need you in this particular realm. Lord, guard the minds of those people who support us, that they don't become disenchanted. And then there's practical things you can do too. Why does this keep zipping down on me? Sometimes there's things going on in our lives that we just don't think too much about it. I've heard of missionaries that have actually done things like, because they don't believe in the supernatural, they'll actually pick up trinkets and stuff like that from the local community that are really icons and amulets and stuff like that, and actually brings problems into their households. And so sometimes you have to examine your household and say, if there is a problem going, say, Lord, is there anything in my house, is there anything in my life that I need to get rid of? You know what? I enjoy Star Trek. I like Star Trek. But it is so humanist.
I know, but it's so fun to watch.
I enjoy it. There's part of us that likes to see that we can overcome our struggles in our own flesh, huh? by the working of our brains and the brawn of our arm. That's really what,
Hey, you're messing with my show.
I love Star Trek.
There's a difference between entertainment and being a little brainless.
So the first command is that be entertained. And it's okay. I watch some edgy stuff too. I watch things because I like to think about, it's like, this is something that the world would watch, and I want to use it to be able to enter into dialogue. Not because I believe what I'm watching. And in fact, I'm the kind of guy that I can't watch anything or reading without arguing with it. This is what's wrong with it. I see what kind of schemes that work here.
I've never taken you and Anne-Marie to the movies. You'll be the chatterbox next to me about what's going on in the movies.
No, I just
enjoy the movie.
No, it takes me a while to process. This stuff is all going on in my head.
Okay. You don't have to bring any duct tape.
Now afterwards you may want the duct tape. I don't know. Because I was like, who's trying to pull the wool over my eyes? And for the longest time, I loved action movies. But then one day I was really convicted that, what an action movie is? An action movie is saying that overcome evil with evil. The way to overcome evil is with greater force and greater violence. And I remember watching, what's the one with Bruce Willis where he goes into the tower? And he was using such profane language, he kept using the Lord's name in vain. And I'm watching this going, why am I watching this? And I realized you can hardly tell. And what's really kind of interesting is the actor who's playing the bad guy is very calm and very speaks very distinctly. And Bruce Willis is this kind of rough character, and it's almost like they turn it upside down to mess with our brains. Because here's the evil guy who's killing people is very very calm and very.
Silence of the Lambs. You know that movie?
But my point being is that you have to watch these things and say, what is it trying to tell me? Right. And I think this is something that we should really do with young people, is don't just watch a movie for entertainment's sake. Because there's two schools of thought. That movies and theater is intended to entertain, and the other thought is that it's to instruct.
Subversive.
And I think, but you can't do one without the other.
No, you can't.
So that you're busy trying to entertain people with more violence, and then you're really instructing them that violence is a